Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to be doing section 5.3 today. Section 5.3 is actually a very long section, so I went ahead and broke it up into two bite-sized pieces to make it a little easier for you guys. We're going to be doing section 5.3a today, and then tomorrow will be 5.3b. They go together, but I'm breaking it up to make it a little easier on you. And then 5.4 actually will go along with these as well. So we're going to be learning how to solve a system of equations, okay? A system of equations is just two or more equations. Right now, we're only going to deal with two equations. When you get to Algebra 2, you're going to be dealing with three different equations. But for right now, we're just dealing with two. So I have equation 1 that I'm going to be graphing in blue, and I have equation 2 that I'm going to be graphing in red. And that'll just kind of keep them separate so you can see what's going on. So this is the first method. It's called graphing. The second method to solving a system is going to be done tomorrow in 5.3b, and that's called substitution. And then the third method to solve a linear system is going to be done on 5.4, which is going to be, it's called elimination, and that's actually my favorite one out of the three. So all three will get you the same answer. It's just a different way of doing it, okay? You'll find the one that you like the best. So at this time, you're going to want to copy this down, what I have. You might want to pause the video even to copy it down. You're going to want to try to get two different colored markers, pencils, a pen and a pencil, something different. Like I said, if you don't have anything like that, if you just have one writing utensil, just use that. But if you have a couple different, it kind of makes it a little easier to see what's happening. So you're going to write down the first equation, which I'm going to graph in blue. And you're going to write down the second equation, and I'm going to graph that in red. And then you also want to write down your two axes. So you have your x-axis here and your y-axis here, and then just do a couple tick marks into the right and up. You don't really have to worry about going down or to the left too much for this problem. And you don't have to have the same exact number of tick marks as me. Just kind of a few to the left, a few to the right and a few up. If you have the notes packet with you, then it already has a graph done for you. However, you might not have that at home. You probably don't have that at all. So you can just use pencil and paper. That's totally fine. So go ahead and pause the video, copy this down, and then I'm going to start showing you how to do the problem. Okay, so if you already have the notes packet, this one was already graphed for you. So they already, I don't know if you can see that, but they already had the lines on the paper for you. So I'm going to put those down. So you had equation. Oops, sorry. That should be red. Oopsie. This was equation 2, sorry. And it kind of looked like that on your paper. And then equation 1 kind of looked like that on your paper. Okay, so these would have already been drawn on your paper for you. Sometimes the people that make the math books and tests are really nice and they do the work for you. So they already graphed these. I'll show you how to graph them later if you don't know how, but they already graphed them for you. So if they've already graphed them for you, it's going to make it really easy. You're just going to tell me where the two lines cross. So all of these answers are going to be where the two lines cross. Okay, so right there is where the two lines cross. And literally all you have to do is tell me that point. Now remember, you always have to have a point with X and then Y. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're using the X first, the side-to-side number, and then the Y second. It's always X, Y for a point. So we're going to start here at the origin. We're going to count to the right first. 1, 2, 3, so that we're even with our point. Okay, so 3 to the right. And then how many up? 1, 2, so that we're even with that. So we went 3 to the right and then up 2. 3 to the right, up 2 would be 3, 2, and that is our answer. That is where the two lines cross, and that would be our answer. Okay, so that one's simple because they already graphed it for you. Now, what happens when they don't graph it for you? How do you know where to put these lines? Well, we learned how to do that back in part A of this class. So you all had part A, so you should be able to know how to do that. But if you've forgotten, I'm going to walk you step by step in the next example on how to do that. So give me a second and I'll get the second example up. Okay, now we're to section 2. So go ahead and you might want to pause the video at this time and write down example 2 so you've got it. And then for this one, most of the graph is going to be to the right and down. So that's how I drew my coordinate plane here. And again, you don't have to have the exact same number of tick marks as me, but you want to kind of, have quite a few to the right and quite a few down for this one. You have equation 2 and example 2, equation 1 and equation 2. And again, I'm going to do one in blue and one in red. So the first equation, I'm going to do equation 1. And then the second one, I'll do in red for equation 2. So go ahead and if you need to, pause the video at this time so that you can get those wrote down. Okay, so now we're going to graph. Well, it's not ready to graph. You learned back in part A of this class how to graph an equation. And it definitely cannot be graphed this way. We want to graph it with y being by itself. So I'm going to rewrite the first equation over here. We'll do it right here. Negative x plus y equals negative 7. Okay, I'm going to turn it a little bit so you can see. So I'm just rewriting it so I have more room to kind of work because I don't really have any room under here. So I just rewrote the first equation and I'm going to do it all in blue so you can see where the graph goes. Now, before you graph, you have to have y by itself. Y is not by itself. There's an x out in front. There's actually an imaginary 1 there. So it's like a negative 1x. Well, what's the opposite of negative 1x? Positive 1x. So you're going to add 1x to both sides. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. These go away and you get y equals. That's the whole point of this. Before you can graph, you have to have y by itself. You have to have y equals. And then we learned in part A that you have to have the x thing first. So your plus 1x, you can just write 1x because it's positive. And then that negative 7 is going to become a minus 7. And that's so that it's in the right form. Y equals mx plus or minus, in this case, b. And we learned that in part A. Okay, so if you don't remember, hopefully that brings back some of your memory. And then we graphed it. We also did that in part A. So right now it's just a giant review of what we did in part A. So come over here and you're going to graph it. The first number you graph, you might even want to label this. This is your first step. Okay, it's that number at the end. If it's a positive, you go up. If it's a negative, you go down. It's called the y-intercept. So you're going to go on the y-axis. It's a negative 7, so we're going to go down 7. Okay, it's only up or down. You can't go right or left for this number because it's the y-intercept, and y is up and down. So it's a negative 7, we go down 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's why I drew my coordinate plane down, because I knew I was going to be going down. If it was a positive 7, I would have drawn it going up because I would have been going up. So you're going to start with a dot there. And now from that starting point, you're going to use your slope to help you. Now from part A of this class, you learned about slope. Slope is rise over run. So you want it to be a fraction. Right now it's not a fraction. What number can we put on the bottom to make it a fraction? The only number I can put on the bottom and not change it is a 1. So if you don't have a fraction, you put a 1 on the bottom and it'll change it to a fraction, but it won't change the value of your number. 1 over 1 is still 1, okay? It's still the original 1. But now I have my rise over run. Rise is up, run is over. Positive 1 would be up 1, and positive 1 on the bottom would be run to the right 1. So from the starting point, I went up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Sorry, it's a little hard on a whiteboard. Okay, from that dot, up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 1, put a dot. And you just basically keep going till you've ran out of room. And you're going to connect the dots. put an arrow on each end, and you just drew a line. Okay, you just graphed a line. We totally did that back in part A. I realized that was a long time ago. You might have forgotten, but that's a big review of part A. No new information. That's stuff you already learned in part A. Then we're going to do the same thing with equation 2. Okay, so now for equation 2, I'm going to graph using red. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a graph for that. Again, just a giant review of something you already learned. I'm going to pause it and get rid of all this because I don't have a lot of room, but you could just write it in another spot. Okay, but give me 1 second to get rid of this, and then I will show you how to graph the next one. Okay, so now it's gone, and now I have some room to do equation 2. So I'm going to take equation 2, and I'm just going to rewrite it. X plus 4y equals -8. Okay, just rewriting it so I've got some more room to kind of work with it. Because right now we're trying to get y by itself, and it's not. We have a 1x out in front. If there's no number there, you can put a 1. So how do you get rid of a plus 1x? What's the opposite? It would be a minus 1x. So we're going to subtract 1x from both sides so that now those go away. We have 4y equals. So we're getting closer to getting y by itself, but y is not by itself yet. There's still a 4 there. Okay, remember out of these two things, you always take the x thing first. Whatever has the x goes first. And then that -8 becomes a -8. Let me move it so you can see it a little better. Okay, now you're going to still try to get y by itself, but there's a 4 out in front. And right now that means 4 times y. So the opposite would be divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. These go away, y equals. Again, this is something you learned back in part A, so it's just a big review of something you've already learned. If you never learned it, here's a great opportunity to learn it. If you need to go back and retake part A of this class, you'll already know how to do this section when you come to that. So it's a great time to take advantage of that. And then here, I didn't do anything with the -1/4 because that's going to give me a decimal. I don't want a decimal with the x. Remember, the one with the x is your slope. Rise over run. It needs to be a fraction. So leave it as a fraction. It's going to help us. Okay, a decimal is not going to help us. But this you can reduce. -8 divided by 4 is -2. Or you can just write the negative symbol, the minus symbol here, and do 8 divided by 4 is 2. You'll still get the same answer. So now we're going to use that to graph. And I'm going to graph in red so you can see the difference. So the first step is to graph the number without the x. If you need to write yourself a note, write yourself a note. First step, so you remember. The more you write down, the more likely you're going to remember. So you've got a -2. And that's your y-intercept, if you remember. You can only go up and down. Well, what do you think you're going to do with a -2? You're going to go down. So start here at the origin, and you're going to go down 1, 2. That is your starting point. Everything's going to go from that starting point. Now you're going to use your slope. Your slope is -1/4. Okay? The top number is rise. The bottom number is run. Rise means up or down. Well, this is a negative, so you're going to go down 1. Okay, you're not going to rise up, you're going to go down. The bottom number is right and left. And since it's a positive, it's going to be to the right. So we're going to go down 1 to the right 4 to make our new point. So come over here to your starting point. You're going to go down 1 and then to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you should be on a dot you already drew. Go ahead and do it again. Go down 1 to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. And at this point, I'm kind of running out of room, so I'm just going to draw my line together and put my arrows. Again, that is just a big review of something you already learned back in part A of this class. So we took problem 1, basically the blue problem, and problem 2, the red problem, and we put them together on one graph for one big problem. Okay, so taking 2 things you already know how to do and putting them together to make one big problem. Now that it's graphed, now where is your answer? Where are you looking on the 2 graphs to find your answer? Just like example 1 when it was already graphed for you. Yeah, example 1 was a lot easier because it was already done for you. You just had to look and find out where they crossed, which is right there. Okay, but you can do it even if they don't graph them for you by doing it on your own. So now we need to figure out what that point is. Remember, it's always x comma y. So it's always going to be side to side first and then up or down second. So start here at your origin and we're going to try to get even with that dot. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going 4 to the right. And then how much do you have to go down? 1, 2, 3 to get even with that line. Okay, so 4 to the right and down 3. Because you're going down 3, it's going to be a negative. So your answer is 4, negative 3. Okay, hopefully that made sense. If not, rewind, go back to the beginning of this example and kind of walk through it again until it makes sense. And then give me a second and I will put up some more checkpoints for you guys to try to, practice on your own. I've got 3 checkpoints and then we are done for today. Okay, so now we're going to start the checkpoints. I have 3 of them for you. You might want to take a second and pause the video. This is checkpoint number 1. Write down the 2 equations. And then for this one, you kind of need a tall, skinny graph. I went down 5 and I went up 10. Okay, and as long as you can do that, you should be good. Just kind of evenly space everything out, pause it, write everything down, and then go ahead and try this on your own. And if you get stuck, hit play and come back and watch me do it. But I don't want you just to do it just to copy down what I'm doing. I do want you to try it first. So pause the video right now, try it on your own, and if you get stuck, then play the video again and kind of come back. Okay, so I'm going to graph the first one in blue again. So we're going to graph this equation 1 in blue. And I don't have a lot of room, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to rewrite it. So I've got negative 5x plus y equals 0. And I'm just giving myself some more room over here to write. So I want to graph this, but y isn't by itself. So I have to get y by itself. So I'm going to I'm going to get rid of the negative 5x. How do you get rid of a negative 5x? You add 5x. Add it to both sides. These go away. You get y equals. Now y is by itself. That's the whole point of this, is to get y by itself. So y is by itself. Again, remember you put the x thing first and the number thing second. And since it's a plus 0, we honestly don't even need to write that. But you can write plus 0 so you don't forget. Because out of these 2 numbers, which number do you start graphing first? You start graphing the one without the x. This is called the y-intercept. So it's going to be where it crosses the y-axis. So this is your first step. Label it first step if you need to remember. And you're going to go to 0. Well, 0 is just up and down 0. So it's right there at the origin, right where the 2 axes cross. Okay, so you're just going to start there. And now you're going to use this number to help you move up or down. Now, it is a slope, so it is rise over run, but it's not a fraction right now. What's the only number I can put on the bottom and not change the value of the 5? Good, a 1, because 5 over 1 or 5 divided by 1 is still 5, so I didn't change the value. If I put a 2 here or a 3 here or a 4 here, I'm going to change the value. So anytime it's not a fraction, you make it a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. Rise over run. Rise up 5, run to the right 1. Up 5 to the right 1. Up 5 to the right 1 from that starting point. So go to your starting point. Go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the right 1, put a dot. Do it again if you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To the right 1. So from the starting point, up 5 to the right 1, put a dot. Up 5 to the right 1, put a dot. And then you're just going to connect your dots with a straight line. Arrows on both ends. Because it can keep going on and on forever if you wanted to do that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the second equation. So the second equation I'm going to do in red. And I'm going to get rid of this just so I've got some more room. You wouldn't need to erase this. Just find another spot on your paper to do the second equation. Maybe even right here below it. But for me, I'm kind of running out of room. So I've got 5x plus y equals 10. You normally wouldn't want to erase anything. Always show your work. Okay? So same idea. It's very similar to this. It's going to be almost the same steps, but this is a positive 5x. So how do we get rid of a positive 5x? We subtract 5x. We do the opposite. Okay? So subtract it from both sides. These go away. We get y equals, bam. We're trying to get y by itself, and y is by itself. So we know we don't have to go any further. We just have to write the thing with the x first. That's just the rule. And the thing without the x goes second. But the thing without the x, even though you write it second, it's actually the first thing you graph. So it's kind of backwards of what you would think. So it's a positive 10. So at this point, you're going to want to make sure that you can go positive or up 10. Remember, this number is on your y-axis. All you can do is go up or down. If it's positive, you go up. If it's negative, you go down. So we're going to go up 10. That's why I wanted to make sure you had at least 10 tick marks going up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you don't, you're going to have to extend your graph and make sure you can go up at least 10 tick marks or you won't be able to graph this one. From that starting point, though, you're going to use this as your slope. Remember, you have to make your slope a fraction. What number goes on the bottom? It's got to be a 1 if it's not a fraction already. But this is a negative 5, so that means down 1. Our bottom number is still positive, so we still go to the right 1, okay? So we are going to go down 5 to the right 1, put a dot. Down 5 to the right 1, put a dot from our starting point. So start up here, count down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then to the right 1 and put a dot. You should be on that dot you already drew, so that's probably where they're going to cross. But we can keep going. We'll go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into the right 1 again. And now we're on the line over here. So connect your dots, put an arrow in each end, and now the whole point of this is to find out where they cross. You already learned in part A how to graph the blue line. You already learned in part A how to graph the red line. And if you didn't learn it, now you have, and hopefully you'll be able to do better in part A if you didn't get your credit before, if you did not know how to do those. But if you've already passed part A, you've already learned how to do those, and you've already learned how to make your graph. The only new information is where they cross, okay? Instead of just doing one graph at a time, you're doing 2 on the same line or on the same coordinate plane, and you're going to tell me where they cross. Remember, it's x comma y. So we're going to go 1 to the right, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. 1 to the right, 5 up, and that is our answer. The answer is always where the 2 lines cross. Tomorrow I will be showing you another way of finding where the 2 lines cross that doesn't involve graphing, okay? But for right now, graphing is the method that you're learning how to do. Okay, I'm going to pause the video for a second, and I'm going to get ready for the second checkpoint. Okay, so now we're on checkpoint number 2. Go ahead and pause the video at this time, write down the problem, and write down a graph, and then go ahead and try it on your own. And then I'm going to come back and when you're done trying it on your own, come back and go through and kind of check your answers while I go through it. If at any time I'm going to go through the checkpoint number 2 and number 3 a little faster, just so you're not on here forever. But if at any time you feel like you're confused, always pause it, rewind it, go back and watch it again. And just keep doing that until it makes sense. And that way, when you go to do the worksheets, you'll be getting them right and you'll be getting higher scores. Okay, so the first one I'm going to graph in blue. Y is not by itself, so I'm going to get y by itself. I've got negative x plus 2y equals 3. I'm just rewriting it. It's a negative 1x since there's no number there, so the opposite is adding 1x. These go away. I get 2y equals, and I put my 1x first and then my 3 second. Now this one's a little trickier because y is not by itself. But back in part A of this class, you learned how to get y by itself. So you should remember that you're just dividing everything by 2. These go away. Y equals, remember, this is a fraction. Keep it a fraction. I see so many people try to turn it into a decimal. We don't want a decimal. We want rise over run. Remember, we wanted a fraction. And if it's not a fraction, we put a 1 under the bottom to make it a fraction. So don't put it into a decimal form. Keep it as a fraction. This one, though, this is 1.5 as a decimal. This one you can keep as a decimal because it's kind of hard to graph 3/2. But I can graph 1.5 or $1.50. It's between $1 and $2. Okay, that's simple. So the decimal here is actually more helpful to us. So we're going to graph $1.50 first. So you're going to go positive up to $1, and then halfway would be $1.50 or 1.5. It's not all the way up to 2, but it's not down at 1. We're right in the middle, and that's okay. Then you're going to go up 1 to the right 2, rise over run. Up 1 would be halfway up again. To the right 2, 1, 2, put a dot. Up 1 to the right 2, 1, 2, put a dot. And keep going up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2 until you get a couple of dots. And put your line in with arrows. Okay? Now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the next equation, which is going to be done in red. Again, you can kind of color code it if you'd like. If not, no big deal. So, erase this. And we'll do the next one in red. 2x plus y equals 4. Okay? We're trying to get y by itself, so we're going to get rid of this positive 2x by subtracting 2x. These go away. We get y equals, yay, y is by itself. We don't have to do any more work. We just have to put the x thing first and the y thing second. Now remember, you're going to start out with the plus 4. That's the y-intercept. So you're going to come over here and you're going to go to plus or positive 4. If it was a negative 4, you'd go down, but it's a plus 4, so you're going to go up. 1, 2, 3, 4 from the origin. Up 4. Put a dot. Now this number is not a fraction. We wanted a fraction. Even though we normally don't like fractions, here we really like fractions. So we're going to put a 1 under it. That's a -2, so that means down 2 to the right 1. So from this dot, we're going to go down 2, 1, 2, to the right 1. Sorry, down 2 to the right 1 and put a dot. Okay? Down 2 to the right 1, put a dot. Down 2 to the right 1, put a dot. At this point, you're pretty much already crossed your line, so you're good. So you're going to connect your dots, arrow on each end, and now you should have a spot where they cross. Now, you don't already have a blue dot there. That's totally fine, but they do definitely cross there. So now we're going to find out where they cross. So we're going to figure out what that number is and what that number is. Okay, so we're going to go 1 to the right and 1, 2 up. So the answer is 1, 2. 1, 2 is your answer. Okay, 1 to the right, 2 up. Okay, I'm going to put checkpoint 3 up in just a second, and you'll go ahead and try that one, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, I'm back with the checkpoint number 3. This is the last checkpoint we're doing for today. Go ahead and pause the video and copy this down. Go ahead and try it, and then play the video and come back and watch me do it and double check your work. Then you'll be ready for section 5.3a worksheet. Okay, so first one I'm going to graph in blue. I've got x minus y equals 5. And I'm trying to get y by itself. So this is imaginary 1 out in front, and it's also a positive 1 out in front. So I'm going to subtract 1x, subtract 1x. Now be careful. This is a negative y or a negative 1y. So if you want to write that, go ahead and make sure it's a negative, because y is not by itself. There is a negative out in front we have to deal with. So we've got a negative 1x, and that's a positive or a plus 5. Now, y is not by itself. There's a negative 1 in front. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything by negative 1. Well, when you divide by negative 1, you're just changing the symbol. You're not changing the number. So negative 1 divided by negative 1 makes a positive 1. And 5 divided by negative 1, all you're doing is making it a minus 5 instead of a positive 5. So now you're going to graph negative 5. So you're going to come over here and graph negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, I didn't graph big enough. So sometimes that happens. You're just going to extend your graph and keep your tick marks going until you're good, okay? So if you need to make it a little bigger, you can always make the graphs a little bigger. You're going to go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can go down 5 and put a dot, okay? Then I'm going to go up 1, over 1, rise over run. Up 1, over 1, put a dot. Up 1, over 1, put a dot. Up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, until I pretty much just fall off the graph. Okay, connect the dots. Put an arrow on each end, and you've graphed the first line. Now you're going to graph the second equation in red. So we'll get rid of all this. Again, don't erase yours. Just find a new place to write the second part. But for me, I just don't have a lot of room. Okay? So we've got 3x plus y equals 3. And we're trying to get y by itself. So to get rid of this plus 3, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. We're going to get y equals. Luckily, we have y by itself with this one. So this one's actually going to be a little easier because y is already by itself. You're going to put your x stuff first. And then that was a positive 3, so you can write plus 3. If it was a negative 3, you'd write minus 3. Our first step is to graph the plus 3. So you're going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, because it's a positive 3. If it was a negative 3, we would have gone down. Okay? From there, you're going to use rise over run. So you're going to put a 1 on the bottom. The negative 3 tells you to go down 3 to the right 1. So from over here, go down 3. 1, 2, 3. To the right 1, put a dot. Down 3. 1, 2, 3. To the right 1, put a dot. And now I've reached a point I've already graphed. So now I can connect the dots, and I already know that it's going to cross at that point. Now remember, all this work just to find out where the two lines cross. So I have to identify where the two lines cross. So I need to find out what that point is. Okay? Remember, it's side to side first. So 1, 2, 2 to the right. And how much down? 1, 2, 3. And since we're going down 3, it's a negative 3. So your answer is 2, negative 3. Okay, so now you should be able to do all of the graphing problems for section 5.3, which I broke up into 5.3a and 5.3b. So just do the 5.3a questions. And yeah, if you have any questions, go back and watch this video. You can pause it along the way and slow it down if I went a little too fast for you. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I will see you tomorrow for 5.3b, where we'll be learning the other method. And then the next day, we'll be learning one more method. So if you don't like this method, you might find another method coming up in the next couple of days that you do like. Everybody will find a method that they prefer better, but I need you to know how to do all three of them. Have a good day, and I hope to see you tomorrow.